wizard.
Welcome back to the channel. I hope you had a very good day, morning, afternoon, evening, etc., etc. And let me tell you, I am in a pretty good mood today. And, I don't know if you're asking why, but I'd be more than gladly to tell you. The source of my good mood for the day came from the positive feedback and constructive criticism I've gotten from the Terraria video I made a few weeks ago. And I am glad it has gotten the support that I asked for. I didn't ask for it, but I'm glad that it is getting attention nevertheless. I will be saving the rest of my channel retrospective for the end of the video, but right now we're going to get into the Book of Boba Fett retrospective. Also, well, it's retrospective, but it's also a criticism. You'll understand when we get there, which will be right now.
6.5 hours later.
Whatever amount of hope and happiness you heard in my voice in the intro is now completely gone. After having to rewatch the Book of Boba Fett for this video, all of that was drained from me. And not only that, my transition cards from last video are going to be suspended as well as a consequence. And also just to give them a break. I used them more than enough in the last video. I'll just go ahead and say it now. The show was mid. It was absolutely mid. There were some good qualities, definitely, but overall, in complete retrospective, the show was mid. I think I'll start with the good qualities because I'm gonna do my best to be positive and constructive. It's Star Wars, like actual frontline main Star Wars content that makes it good. Just because it exists in the Star Wars universe. Sadly, however, that's about it when it comes to the positives. At any point when you look deeper into the show than at face value or after you watch it for the first time, it seems like everything that it constructed is just shattered into a dozen pieces. My issues with the show is roughly the same as everybody else's from what I've heard, but I feel like going into detail regardless. My primary issue with the Book of Boba Fett is that they really named the show wrong. It should have just been called the Book of Star Wars, because for someone's name to be in the title, I would say for every episode they should at least contribute something important to the plot. But Boba really doesn't do that. For an entire fourth of the show, he is just completely gone from the story. He is mentioned by name by Fennec in episode 5, and then he just stands there in episode 6. But that doesn't mean he contributes anything. He's just kind of there. That's kind of like if Harry Potter just didn't go to school one year and one of the stories of the book just happened without him. Like if the Goblet of Fire just didn't have him in it, he just stayed home the whole year to school. That's pretty much how it feels like. And it wouldn't really function. It wouldn't be the same story. Or even better of an example, what if, Clutch Powers, the Lego guy from that one movie, 2005, called Clutch Powers? Yeah, that one. What if he just didn't show up? What if he just wasn't a part of the movie at all because he didn't feel like it? The movie would be way worse without him. And, even then, I'd still love Clutch Powers. He is an S-tier character, alright? All the other characters, all the insignificant ones at the bottom of the food chain, the damned, okay? They're all the way down there at F-tier, okay? And Clutch, all the way up here at S-tier. Because he is a perfect hunk of man. Going back to Star Wars, however, this show has some of the worst pacing I've seen in a long time. Maybe ever, to be quite honest. With the most shoehorned in flashbacks I have had the displeasure of experiencing. It was okay the first, maybe the second time, but whenever it takes up half the show just to, at least for the first 4 episodes, it takes up half the show. That's not too fun at all, and that's just a sucky way of telling a story. As much as I'll complain, I'll give a suggestion or two as a way to fix most of the show's problems. I think the first thing that should be done is to recognize the main character that you have, or that we have in this instance, because it is the Boba Fett, right? The Boba Fett, all right? He has so much potential, especially since he only got 5 lines in the original trilogy, and he was there in Attack of the Clones, but then after that he disappeared other than a few appearances on the Clone Wars show. But other than that, he's practically a blank slate. I mean, other than the Mandalorian. But, you know, with the potential on paper, alright, he's basically a blank slate. The potential that he has is that he's more of a man than just someone that sits on Jabba's throne and walks around the streets, you know, cruising the streets of LA, basically. Like, come on. You got sand, street violence, and poor people. LA and Mos Espa are basically the same place, but with 2 different names. To help show Boba Fett as a more interesting and dynamic character, I think the show should have been more like an anthology series. Sort of like the original Clone Wars show, but with fewer arcs that are more concentrated and sort of tie into each other. Like, they should be still watched in the order as the episodes come out, but they still show vastly different settings and some characters being changed. Like, they could show Boba's time on Kamino. They could show, you know, during the Clone Wars. Yes, during the Clone Wars, Boba's time as a kid on Kamino. All right, we already got a few flashbacks of that in the show itself. However, they only lasted 2 seconds with no dialogue, just him looking sad, and you know, that was pretty much it from him. There could also be one arc, we could call it, that takes place between A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back, where maybe Vader hires Boba Fett, and maybe a certain blue man that we'll talk about later, to hunt down Luke Skywalker. And maybe this could show how Vader knows that Luke is his son. I mean, I'm sure I'm probably wrong. There's possibly an actual canon way that we learn, or that Vader learns, that Luke is his son. But if there isn't, and if it's something that not everybody knows because not everyone read the comics, the comics, then I'm sure it would be a great way to sort of have that be learned organically. The third one could be Boba's time with the Tuskens. I think that part of the show was good, helped develop more of Boba's nicer side. However, how it was inserted and shoehorned into the show, with the flashbacks taking up a majority or a certain percentage that I showed earlier, that wasn't the best way to implement that. I think a good way to implement that would be with its own sort of arc. So not really much. Don't change too much of what happens. Just keep it all in the same series of events, and so it could be more coherent. Finally, it could be the rest of the normal show, the part that we're supposed to focus on and remember, with Boba and Fennec sort of co-running, not really co-running, but you know, with Boba being the daimyo of Mos Espa, or the Tatooine region. You know, that part was good, and then it could sort of maybe set up a cliffhanger if they ever make a next season, if it was received well enough. I explain all of this because it seems more like chapters of a novel or a book. You know, a book of Boba Fett. All right, it is perfect. It would fit in wonderfully, and you know, if it makes any sense, then it's weird that a 16-year-old nobody can figure this out better than the writers at Lucasfilm. I'm sure they had a lot of ideas, and maybe some of it's Disney's fault, but I'm not gonna put the finger on them. It would just be way better than what we got. That goes for the environment as well. The city of Mos Espa is okay, but we've seen the planet of Tatooine way too much. It was in a majority of the episodes. I think it was episode 4, 1, 2, 3, 2 episodes of The Mandalorian. I think 1 season for each. And then there's obviously episode 7 with Jakku. I know it's a different planet, but they're both desert planets, and episode 7 was just mimicking episode 4. So really it's just the same thing. And then there's also episode 9, but that was just to make Anakin's ghost angry that they put his lightsaber, they just buried it in sand. That last scene in Rise of Skywalker could have also been implemented to ruin the trilogy's whole message, but that is a topic that is way deeper for the purposes of this video. Now, yes, we did go to the weird Halo ring city in episode 5? Yes, episode 5. And then Luke's Jedi Temple in episode 6. However, I'm going to be the one to complain that really wasn't needed because Boba Fett wasn't there. That claim on itself is not a good claim to make. You know, just because something is there and someone isn't there doesn't make it automatically bad. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that it doesn't make sense for it to be in the show because the show is supposed to be about Boba Fett, not the Mandalorian, which is going to tie into my next point, that the Mandalorian really didn't need to be in the show as much as he should have. Like, the Mandalorian, he had 2 full seasons to do stuff, and he did do stuff. He did a lot of stuff, alright? Stuff! Yes, stuff, alright? It was all pretty cool stuff, alright? I'm not hating on the Mandalorian. I don't think anyone should. It's just that, you know, episodes 5 and 6 really should have just been Mandalorian Season 3. Alright? Now, yes, I know that wasn't going to come out anytime soon as of recording this, but it really, it just fit, it would fit way better. It would help start that show instead of, like, you know, doing it like the DC Cinematic Universe and starting one thing and having subplots for that when, you know, that's supposed to be meant for the next, you know, 2 or 3 movies when they're not focusing on the movie they are making right at that moment. Unfortunately, to the Book of Boba Fett, episodes 5 and 6, from what I have seen on social media and whenever those episodes came out, those 2 were the most well-received episodes. And that really harms the potential for a Book of Boba Fett Season 2. And, you know, because, like, Boba Fett, like I said, great character. He's got a lot of potential. And, you know, I really just don't want to see only, like, Mandalorian stuff on Disney Plus, because there's more to Star Wars than just Mandalorian. But with how things were and are going, it seems like the only redemption there could be is if Obi-Wan is a really good show, and it has potential. It has a lot of potential. People have been asking for it for years, and you know, it just has to do well. Otherwise, they're really either going to abandon the Disney Plus original shows for Star Wars, or they're gonna just only do Mandalorian. And you know, Mandalorian's good, but it's like It's like having like 6 things of ramen when you really only need 1. It would just be too excessive. To set things on a different path now, we're just talking about the book of Boba Fett, which is what this video is supposed to be about. I apologize about my tangent about, episodes 5 and 6. I didn't really mean for it to take up that much time, but it's important to talk about for the context of the show. So I think I'm going to keep it in. But, however, the characters, like side characters, pretty much anyone that isn't a part of the show from the beginning, really, they don't seem like they have that much dimension. It doesn't seem like they're used well enough, or at all. Like, there's the the biker people that we barely still know, even after the show ended. Or not really ended, but just after the season end, still didn't really know that much about them. Like, they were water thieves, and then Boba hires them. Like, I don't get it. I get it. Their character designs, with the bionics and such, it's a good idea. However, that's very cyberpunk. I'm not sure if Star Wars was meant to be cyberpunk, but then again, Star Wars is a lot of things. So perhaps cyberpunk is just another thing that you can add onto the list. Star Wars, the brand, the franchise, is an ever-expanding, pretty much franchise. So if it has the ability to try different things and succeed. Sure, there are things like Star Wars, I guess Resistance, that didn't really go too well, or at least from what I've seen. But it's probably because it's kiddie stuff. It's meant for 13 and below or 10 and below. And I gotta remember. There was the Wookiee. I'm sure he's. I have a feeling. I have a huge feeling that he was in something else, like a Clone Wars episode or something. But I cannot remember for the life of me. And there was the comedy relief Twi'lek. He was okay. I can kind of see what kind of comedy he was going for, but that doesn't mean he was funny. I just think he was a harmless distraction, and I'm not going to think too deep into it because he's not meant to be taken as a deep and thoughtful character.